So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. As I said to my viewers today, I'm recording selfie style, so I appreciate you taking this time. So how do people know you? Like you've got like a tag name like rational feminist or something?
Rational female, definitely not rational feminist.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, what's your real name?
Zarina Matcha.
Okay, and my name's Khalid Safir. Okay, and so I think we agree on a lot of stuff. That you describe yourself as sort of anti-feminist because nowadays feminism means like being men hating sort of thing. Is that how you describe it? How would you describe feminism for yourself?
So feminism, first of all, is fundamentally a social and political ideology that claims that women are oppressed by a patriarchal society, and that the solution to this is to liberate women from this patriarchy by the destruction of gender roles. It's never actually been about achieving equality or equal rights. This is a massive lie and a big misconception of feminism. It's not about equality. It's not about empowering women. It's never really been about that at all. And there is a lovely lady called Professor Janice Fiamenko who has done extensive research into feminism over the years, and she's talked about how much of what we've been taught about feminism has been a lie, how it has always been, a very radical, a very misandric movement, and it especially got really bad around the 1960s. That's when it became much influential within the academic world in the West, and when they started teaching people things like patriarchal theory, social constructionism, saying that there are male and female is a social construct, and that there's no difference.
So there's a lot of interesting ideas that relates to the trans movement, for example. That's very interesting. Didn't think of it that way. I've got a weird idea or different idea of feminism. Because I like to redefine things myself. Like, I like to say I'm a feminist in the sense that I think feminism should be how to be nice to women. And it doesn't have to be about patriarchal, whatever, right? So I believe that as a Muslim, I think Islam is a feminist idea, right? Because a lot of women are becoming Muslim and because they like the idea of the gender roles. So, I mean, I think you disagree with Islam, but I think as Muslims and yourself, we agree on all sorts of things within Islam. Let's just say we agree, as Muslims, we agree on gender roles. Do you agree on gender roles of some sort?
Well, I wouldn't say, first of all, to address your earlier point, it's not about what someone thinks feminism is. It's not about, because this is very dangerous when we say, oh, we think feminism is just being nice to women. We're actually taking away what feminism actually is fundamentally a political ideology, and it's very dangerous when we just say, oh, feminism is just about giving women choices, or feminism is just about equal rights, because we're actually contributing to a culture of this toxic misandry, i.e. hatred of men, which feminism is effectively teaching. And regarding, do I believe in gender roles, it depends what you mean by gender roles. Do I believe men and women are different? This is just a biological fact. Men and women are different, and yes, you're quite correct that in every culture, in most religions, men and women are seen as complementary. This is in Islamic cultures, in Hinduism, in Sikhism, in Christianity, even in secular liberalism. Like most people, classical liberalism states that men and women are both equal. So there isn't really any cause to say that a woman is oppressed when most societies, cultures, and ideologies believe that women are not.
That's so nice. Another person helping me out with it's really, if you do get tired, do tell me, but you'll have to keep looking at this because that's really nice. People helping me out. So she did a video with me just a minute ago, and now she's helping us. So kind. And we just, you know what I want to say, we disagree and we're helping each other out. That's so nice. Okay. And I bet we all disagree to some extent and agree on some extent, right? So let's dig into the gender roles, because that's really interesting, because I think there's a lot of agreement and disagreement as well at the same time. It's really weird. What gender roles should there be? We accept men and women are different. So what gender roles should there be?
Well, I don't think we should tell people what to do. I think that...
we're not telling anybody to do.
I know you're not, but effectively I'm going to say that to the viewers, because a lot of people as well think that if you're anti-feminist, you think women should be in the kitchen or men should be in this way, and actually, oh, that's too close.
I'm not going to get it.
It's okay.
It's hard work, but thank you. Yeah.
Well, effectively, all I believe is that if you take away feminism and you take away this very Marxist indoctrination, then people just default to what they naturally are. For example, in Sweden, a study found that most young boys and girls chose professions that were more in line with their gender roles, i.e. women were more likely to choose professions in arts and humanities, and males were more likely to choose professions in STEM subjects and law. And this isn't about oppressing anyone, it's about the fact that women and men are naturally different, and we tend to want to have different roles in societies. That's all gender roles means. It just means that women and men play different roles in societies. If men want to be nurses, they can. If women want to be lawyers, they can. But in most cases, there are certain areas of life where there are more women and there are more men, and that's perfectly okay.
So I agree with that as well, because we can,
agree.
yeah. So yeah, look, if we don't get overly ideological and we stick to the facts, we can see men like certain things. Like it's well known that men like things people like. No, women like people, or are more into people.
Yeah, women are more cooperative, more people-oriented, whereas men are more kind of, what's the word, I guess?
Mechanistic.
Yeah, mechanistic.
We like computers and things and programming, whatever.
As well. And this isn't oppression. This isn't saying that women can't do that. It's just saying that this is how it is generally. And also, we need to really respect. I think gender roles are so important in a relationship. That's when it's probably the most important. In that a man should be the provider. Well, not should be, but in most cases, a man wants to be the provider. In most cases, a woman wants to be the caregiver. And there's nothing wrong as well with women wanting to be at home with their children. And this is so bad how a lot of feminists don't respect the fact that most women would like to be mothers, and a lot of women as well. Should we lower it down slightly?
Yeah. We'll try not to make this too long because I know it's very tiring and very difficult. It's very kind of you to volunteer. No, she came up to us. She was so nice to do this.
So effectively, most cases, most women would like to be at home with their children, especially when they have young children. And the feminists don't respect this. They don't support this at all. They say this is oppression. They say that women shouldn't have to be at home with their kids. They want basically the state to look after women's kids.
So if basically feminists are. The general understanding of feminists, not my understanding of feminists, but the normal understanding of feminists is like, if you don't do what they say, you're oppressed.
Basically,
if you're a woman and you don't forget your children and go to work, you're oppressed. That's their understanding, and
they just want a choice. I think they just want to have a choice. Yeah. If you choose to stay home, fine. If you don't choose to stay home, that's fine too. It's just choice. That's all.
I think that's a fair point.
This is actually not really feminism. This idea of people having choices is actually...
Okay, so I think there's an interesting discussion here, which is feminists don't necessarily... And maybe I'm wrong here. Actually, I think I'm wrong to some extent what I'm about to say, but they don't force their will on other people. But I think the feminist ideology is creeping through government, where they're forcing people like my wife to go to work when she didn't want to, stuff like that. So that's an interesting situation. So let's say people make their own choices in theory, right? What do you think? What do you think is the best role for women? If they were to choose statistically through the science, through the evidence.
Well, women can have choices, but we don't need feminists to tell us we can have choices. Women have always been able to do whatever they want. It's just that most women would prefer to be with their children. And instead of saying this is oppression, we should just respect this. We should respect the fact that given the choice, most women would choose to be mothers. Most women would choose to work shorter working hours. Most women do not want to be in politics. Most women do not want to do the same things that men do. And we should effectively kind of leave women alone and stop telling women they're being oppressed and start telling women that they should honor their choices. I don't believe in telling people what to do. I believe that we should let people do what they feel best suits them, and we should need to stop telling people that this is oppression or this is misogyny, and actually just let people be.
And I could, and just since you're here, you were nodding along and agreeing with a lot of what she was saying.
Well, I mean, I wanted to work a couple of mornings a week and stay. My husband ended up staying home when my kids were young. But what percentage of British women families have the choice where one person can go to work and the other one can stay home? That is not possible in Canada. It is too expensive to do that. So I don't see how you can be criticizing women. That is only available to the rich, which people want to stay home with their kids, but they can't.
Well, absolutely, and actually, effectively, feminism contributed to that a lot, because before feminism, there was much more of a society where women could be with their kids and men were able to work, but feminism has almost encouraged this two-parent society.
That's clearly not true, because before the rise of feminism, it was a feudal society based on
But I just
religion,
want to, I just
based
want
on
to,
religious ideology.
I just want to keep it between us two.
And
Otherwise,
I'm just correcting an oversight on history.
yeah. Okay. Anyway, so
I was talking about only within the
Yeah.
20th century, not within the all like before that.
Right,
We're just
yeah.
saying within the 20th century that prior to the feminist movement, there was more of a kind of society, you know, especially in like the West and.
no, I agree. In the past, women were not forced to work or expected to work, and
They
they
didn't
managed
have to.
very well.
Yeah, they didn't have to.
It's actually very intriguing. I think you made a really good point. In this age of technology, when we've become more and more efficient, and things should be easier and easier, instead things are becoming more and more difficult. We're being forced, interestingly, into doing things we don't want to. Like people are working harder and harder. Everybody has to have two jobs and things. But at the same time, there are a lot of poor people who manage not to, as long as they can keep their lifestyle requirements down. So if they're not too materialistic, they don't need to buy the £80,000 car. It's possible. I think there are a lot of poor people like myself. I'm not particularly well off, and we manage to keep away from having to work. Just have lower standards.
Oh no, yeah. Well said, really done much.
Yeah.
I wanted to actually make an important point you said earlier about the whole the trans ideology thing, because that as well, a lot of that does come from not from feminism, but from the same family of feminism. This idea of social constructionism is saying that gender is a social construct, and this is quite dangerous because when you tell people that what they are is a social construct, you're ignoring the biological reality of sex, and you're effectively saying that males can be, you know, we can effectively eradicate the male and female and just have everything be confused, and it's really dangerous when we start pushing this onto children and saying that children can now effectively just be confused about their gender. Really.
Yeah, you can't just say. I think it's dangerous just to say I can identify as anything you want, because then there's no limitations then, and also we're denying the biological mechanisms that help us work well as human beings, right? If we have too much sugar, for example, that's bad for us. If we start taking really powerful drugs to start looking like the opposite gender or sex, that's going to be way more dangerous than having lots of sugar, for example. And people are then it's becoming like a trend, you know, it certainly is becoming a trend that loads of people are saying we're transsexual, and then they're taking these really dangerous drugs that have long-term effects that they might regret in the future, like they won't be able to have children, their bone density is going to be a problem, they're going to have problems with their hearts and things like that. There's a huge amount of danger, and so I'm not being hateful to transsexuals by saying you should be careful about the choices you make, and be aware of the careful balance within the human body, the body that you were born into.
I think that's very well said. I completely agree with what you're saying. You know, I'm not against, you know, an adult wanting to have a sex change, but they should be aware of the risks, and I don't think we should be promoting this as kind of a positive thing. We should actually say this is actually something which is quite potentially might cause somebody harm, because you're effectively taking, you know, these altering hormones, you're taking these drugs that might have a very, very negative long-term ramifications onto you, and this is something which we should be very, very careful of, and also figure out what is, because, you know, you said you're very solution focused, what is the root cause of gender dysphoria? Why are so many people now saying they're confused about their gender? Like, why is this become a big cultural phenomenon? Because, you know, what is going on here? Why is this a problem, really?
Well, I would say it's an interesting question. You say, what is the problem? I think we've become, men and women have become competitors rather than complementary to each other.
Which is largely, you know, again, very much perpetuated by feminism.
Yeah, that's a good point. And so, I mean, I try to, when I make my videos, one thing I forgot to say when I was telling my friend, hey, what's your name, Jill, right? I say, I really like to start my videos by saying, I like to do happiness videos. I'm not just having an ideological conversation for the sake of it. I'm having a conversation that would hopefully make people's lives better, right?
Yes.
Okay, so
with the transgender people, they've done a lot of scientific studies on, and they've tracked these people, and it is intuitive that they would not be happy, you know, and that there'd be a lot of regret. But actually, there is very, very little regret, and they feel that as this trend has gone on and on, that there's the numbers have even decreased with the people that regret having this transition, and they believe it's because that the psychologists, the people who are dealing with these people from a young age, are better at detecting who really wants to transgender and who doesn't. And so their numbers are decreasing even further. So it seems intuitive that there's going to be a lot of people regretting it, but if you actually look at the science, they don't.
So,
Yeah, and it's also
okay. Go on then. Let's get my
also-
friend Dustin
It's
to
also
this.
very important to remember that the whole process takes about 2 years before even the transgender process begins, where you have to go through to see medical attention first, then psychologists. So you just don't wake up one morning and go, right, I feel like a man or a woman, I'm going to change. The whole process, just even to begin the actual transition, takes 2 years of psychological reviewing to make sure that
Can I ask you a question? What age should people start that process? Do you think it's okay for them to start that very difficult and committal process? You basically commit to changing your sex and have long-term effects.
But yeah, after a 2 year process.
No, but what age can they start? Do you think their
Yeah, I heard the question.
children are ready for that?
So, firstly, we should have conversations at 12 about what it is to be an adult. And then sex education at 13, 14, 15, which is not about just graphic images, but about adult conversations, what it means to be in a consensual relationship. And then when once the child has been educated, and then at that point at 18, at 16, sorry, they can begin the psychological review, that is. And then at 18, as they're an adult, which means you have no longer control over them, and they have autonomy over their own body. And if they still wish after that 2 year process to start the actual very serious and real transition with the family being supportive. And I think that's a very human and beautiful way to deal with society.
Okay, yeah, I would agree that like once you're a legal adult and you have some maturity of mind, you have no obvious mental health issues, then you should be able to make your own choices. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I agree. It's a very complicated topic, but yeah, it's one which we're definitely going to have to continue to look for revolutions for, especially in the future.
Sure.
Again,
As society's changes, like right now, there's a lot of people who are against transgendered people, and the idea of beauty is like very feminine or very masculine. As society changes and we accept that there's all sorts of kinds of beauty, maybe people won't want to just go through the process. Maybe we can accept beauty for what it is and different kinds. But right now, it's like people are discriminated against because they are transgender, so they want to go through the operation. And so I think it's more on a spectrum rather than binary.
Okay, so one thing I as always forget a lot of things I wanted to say. So the other thing I will forget to say is because I try to come from an Islamic point of view and I want to hear what people have got to say. And there are some things that you said I thought, oh, that's very Islamic in the sense that the word for husband and wife for jawaz, which means opposite pairs of one thing. So it's kind of like you could actually use the same word for shoes. Shoes are different, but they're part of the same whole, right? And that gives the idea of we're complementary rather than in competition. Your shoes are not in competition with each other. They're like they're for your both feet to help you get somewhere. Do you know what I mean? So that's one idea. I think generally we might agree that we should be complementary in the sense that we're different, but we should work together rather than in opposition. Generally, we shouldn't be in opposition with anybody, I think. But we can disagree and maybe teach each other stuff, but not fight each other. I think there's too much of that as well, right? And then the other idea that Islam teaches is that says it has a lot of metaphorical language. It says that husband and wife are raiment as in beautiful and protective clothing for each other. What that means is that when you are in a relationship, in a long-term relationship, both parties develop and both parties bring something to that relationship. Like maybe, not maybe, but men and women are supposed to bring a certain element of softness to the relationship. So even people who are not in relationships, women and men, when they're outside a relationship, they often become very hardened and aggressive, right? And so that's supposed to bring that ground. You know, like men, if they're not in a sexual relationship or in a good long-term relationship, their testosterone levels are too high. I think women have some sort of effect that I've noticed, and among some feminists, have become very anti-everybody and very angry about things. That's obviously a meme, you know, about feminists just angry. And again, I don't hate on feminists, but I do think there is a problem. If you're outside a relationship, you don't know how to compliment people, you don't know how to be with other people, you don't have the patience to be with other people. I've talked a lot there, but any thoughts about these Islamic ideas? Are you against any of those Islamic ideas?
Well, I think what you're saying is an Islamic idea is really just a universal idea. I think this is prevalent in most ideologies. For example, in the Hindu faith, they have the Shiv Shakti, which is the divine feminine, the divine masculine. In Christianity, they also believe that males and females are complementary, and even in just look at biology, which is obviously scientific. The idea of males and females being complementary. So I completely agree with you. I don't think this is Islamic so much as it's just a universal humanitarian ideal, and I completely agree.
I actually agree that it's not just an Islamic idea, because Islam says it's a natural religion, right? So hopefully it's a natural idea that makes sense if we just look at the facts, right? But so this is where I want to kind of get to a point, which is there's a massive breakdown of families. People are struggling to stay in relationships. And a lot of that cause, I think, is because despite us agreeing that men and women are different and we should do different things, many people in the West don't think so. And so they're both going to work, even if they don't necessarily have to go to work. They're having a very expensive lifestyle. They don't spend much time with their children. I feel very sad when I go to school, when I teach in schools. I'm a private tutor now. But I have to go very early in the morning, and I can see little kids being dropped into daycare centres, and they won't see their children and their parents until the evening, and those children will definitely I don't know how to describe, they'll be scarred by that, because they will feel their parents didn't really care about them, right? And their parents will be too tired to take care of them, and there's a sexist marriages are very common now, because everybody's too tired. If you're both going to work, you're not gonna. So there's a million problems. We're agreeing, but a lot of the Western world doesn't agree, and somehow Muslims are managing to maintain these kind of relationships, these gender roles as they're described, and without Islam, a lot of people are not following these ideas that we're agreeing on. So what's going on there?
Well, this is the thing. Like, the West needs to just say, like, we shouldn't have to have the West become Islamified. We should be able to simply say, right, we all know basic common sense, men are men, women are women, and this shouldn't be.
What I'm saying is that we think it's common sense, but most of the West doesn't seem to realize it, and that's hence the breakdown of the families. So what's going on there? Like, we can't say it's common sense if we agree, but most of the world doesn't agree, or the West doesn't.
The thing is, most of the West does agree. It's because in academia, and you mentioned earlier, well, in the government, it's because these institutions have effectively indoctrinated and created a lot of this breakdown of these. So a lot of the breakdown of the West came from cultural Marxism, Bolshevism, feminism, and it's all effectively connected.
So are you saying that we are generally the masses are really easily affected by ideas?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It really is. A lot of this breakdown of family, breakdown of society, was caused by the influence of cultural Marxism, social constructionism, and feminism. And I think that the way to solve this in the West, without necessarily needing to say, oh, we're bringing a religion, is just simply go back to basics, back to common sense, back to effectively biology, back to, just secularism, effectively,
So it would be nice if we could do that. I promote Islamic ideas, but I promote it to people who are not Muslim. I say, you know what? I want everybody to be happy. Everybody's my brother and sister. I want this. I want people's relationships to work out. So I tell people, copy these Islamic ideas. Don't even become a Muslim. I recommend become a Muslim. It's like the full package is really good and seems to work for relationships. But the problem is people don't seem to be following it, despite what we're saying.
Well, they are following it. I think it's just, again, because, as I said earlier, when you effectively start teaching people about things like feminism, social constructionism, Marxism, you are contributing to the breakdown of family, and this is why we just have to just keep fighting it.
So you're saying there are a bunch of ideas that are really destructive, and you wanted to say something, sister?
I think that that the society would be better, but people don't want to pay taxes. So if you're going to have one person stay at home in London, I don't know. I've heard that it's very expensive to live in London. If you're going to have one person stay home and take care of the kids, like they did, like what my mom did in the '60s, come and get us at school, make the lunch, then take us back to school, then people are going to have to pay more taxes. And there isn't a base in this society where people want to pay much more taxes.
Or we're willing to live a much poorer lifestyle without 10 phones in a household. Like, a poor person nowadays has Nike trainers, everybody in the house has got phones, whatever.
I just got my first phone to come on this trip.
Well, you're special, but
No, I'm weird. You can't travel now without a phone.
Yes.
Society demands it. So
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. I think we covered the ideas, and I really appreciate your time. It's so nice.
Thank you. Nice talking to you.
Thank you, Jill, again, coming back. All right. And so, I mean, I suppose what I like to finish off with is that, like, I'm sure if we went into things like let's just to make it difficult, not really, but you really don't like Islam, is that right?
Well, I wouldn't say I don't like Islam. I mean, there's good things about Islam. I'm against the Islamification of the West. I'm against the erasure of the native English population. I don't think that we should effectively have a religion be used as a form of ideological warfare. That's
I agree. Actually, then
I'm
we
not
would.
actually anti-Islam in a sense that obviously acknowledge there's many positive things about Islam. The only worry and concern I have is when people believe that Islam is the solution and effectively we should have one religion be the dominant religion. That's really the only problem I have with Islam, actually.
Okay, so sometimes it looks like, like when you have conversations, that sometimes maybe where they're edited on Ali Dawa's videos, right? It can give the wrong impression. So all I was actually trying to get at is actually we can disagree, but we haven't really disagreed much, to be honest. But we can disagree and still have a intelligent, calm, and rational conversation. Hopefully we'll have loads more videos like this. Appreciate your time.
For sure, man. Thank you.